you got to put some kind of like concrete shape to that general discomfort with it, and it comes out as transphobia.
Well, yeah,
and
people
then
are always trying to rationalize their feelings.
Yeah, and then those feelings can be, depending on what kind of discourse you have, what kind of friend circles, where you grow up, what kind of parents, that feeling can calcify and harden into something, or it can soften and be influenced. But I don't know. I do think that pop culture does a lot for us to allow. It's a medium for us to kind of like try out other people's like lives and put on their shoes and walk around them a bit. And I think that's one of the reasons why it seems like progressives win the culture war more often than not in the long term, because it's really hard to hold on to that just subjective opinion of dislike when you're confronted with people's genuine pain or genuine joys.
I also think people who are capable of introspection just tend to make better art. There's a reason why artists have always leaned progressive. Yeah. I mean, of course, there are deviations, but just as a whole, those fascist dictatorships have always targeted the artists, or resistance has always come from within communities of art, whether that be cinema or television or even painting. And it's not surprising to me at all. And I do think we're winning the culture war in that respect, if nothing else. If you take a look at, for example, the direction movies and shows and cartoons are all heading in, it's undeniable that we're seeing a significantly greater influence from progressives. And some of these pieces of media do it poorly, and some of them do it well. Of course, the discourse around Steven Universe has been almost unavoidable online over the past 6 or 7 years. But even newer stuff is I think subtly infusing those values in a way that I think is quite compelling. And these values are incredibly defensible. That all people should be treated equally and with dignity, fundamentally, that you should be comfortable with who you are and be who you want to be and to not hurt other people. These are very, very simple schoolhouse values. We're not talking, we're not talking about like some sinister attempt at indoctrinating the children. These are values any child should have. And you mentioned earlier that discomfort people feel, and the fact that if it's directly challenged, people get a little bit defensive. And that's one of the reasons why I think the online left has dropped the ball over the past couple of years when it comes to advocacy for our ideas. It's one of the things I try to address with my channel, where I feel that leftism and progressivism doesn't have to be this monolithic, gate-kept, very pure sort of ivory tower of incredibly informed behavior, but rather that it's a spectrum, and we all move over, and we move over best, when we're not being shamed by the people we're moving towards.
Right.
Yeah, so it's more about challenging these ideas and leaving the people untouched. I try to do that for the most part.
No, there should be like a soft border where people can come in and maybe they got some mud on their shoes, and you got the tougher kind of rough and ready people on the outside. You get the mud room of discourse where it's like, hey, you know what? Got some mud on your shoes. Let's scrape that off, and then welcome you further into. Now you got your shoes clean, so let's go into the main house. Hey, by the way, we take our shoes off in the main house because we got this nice carpet, and you just keep on inviting them further and further in, and educating them as you go. But like too often, I think it's a stereotype that like leftist discourse spaces are more hard shells, that like if you got the muddy shoes, fuck you, it's not our job to clean your shoes.
Yeah, it's a pristine dining room in the middle of a swamp, and you have to arrive there completely filth free, and then you can come in, but otherwise no. But
I understand like where the frustration of people who've had, muddy footprints in their fucking house for generations, that's frustrating. And I think that's why guys like ourselves, white dudes, that don't have that experience of just being, shit on all the time. We're the men and women of our type can be kind of the mudroom attendants, like, hey, we can help you get your shoes clean. This isn't the 1,000th time we've had this conversation with a person, and it's also not directly affecting us, so there's not that emotional kind of like charge to it.
Well, I completely agree, and not only is that valuable, I think it's quite fun, to be honest, as well.
Well, I wanted to talk to you about your your persuasion style, because it's a little bit more smash mouth than mine. But I noticed, because I was going through a couple of the debates you had, and I was sitting there and I'm like, because you and I come from different backgrounds, and I saw some people make statements and I'm like, well, man, I that could come out of my mouth 20 years ago, and I think Vaush is kind of beating up on him a little bit too much. But I do overall, it feels like you have almost like a big brother energy, where you smack him on the ass, or you give him noogies on the head, but then you kind of back off and is that something you consciously do, or are you just kind of winging it when you're having these conversations?
No,
do you have a methodology for?
Yeah, it's something I try to do. When I'm debating people or arguing with people, I'm never trying to convince the person I'm talking to, unless I'm talking to a very large public figure, in very scant cases, in which case their knowledge or their affirmation is worth more with regards to my time. But usually when I'm debating people, what I'm trying to do is convince the audience. I would hope people who've watched me for a while will recognize that while I can be incredibly mean to people when I disagree with them, I am also unbelievably kind to people who I think are making an effort to move left. I have never in the history of this channel seen a person make an effort to do better and punish them for it. It has never happened once. I'm incredibly doting to those people. And I think it's a stick in the carrot method. A lot of people who are on the right are so because they've been led in by the perceived strength of the demagogues who they watch online. Sure. You have people like, an obvious example is Ben Shapiro, of course. Talks fast, big brain, debate lord. He's kind of a meme in lefty circles, but we have to recognize he's very popular to people on the right. And a lot of that is because he presents this facade of indefatigable debate prowess, incredibly intelligent, and that helps people see past him being a dweeb for the most part. It doesn't. I mean, he's also quite dishonest. But sticking just to the aesthetics of the presentation, that's why he only debates college students, of course. Because if he debated somebody who knew what they were doing and was prepared on the topic and brought research material with them, he would be lucky to come away with a draw. And that perceived strength is something fairly unique to the right. Left-leaning content creators don't really do that. The biggest left-leaning content creators are either newscasters or queer, queer poly video essayists who voice their scripts in a room with Christmas lights illuminating their face. It's a very different aesthetic. I think what a lot of boys need is just a smack. They need to be shown that the people they look up to online are fucking idiots. They're very dumb. They're only impressive because they've made dozens of videos where they talk down on YouTube videos to a person who doesn't get to speak back to them. I'm mean to them. I'll mean to you if you agree with them. But at the end of the day, I hang up the towel, and I'm happy to have you come over and hear my arguments whenever you want. It's worked for me so far, but I've had to adjust my perspective on this quite a bit since I started the channel.